Welcome to True and Unpolished, the podcast, a Cusp culture production. Through this podcast, our intention is to uplift, inspire, and amuse.
Let's get authentic. Hi, everybody. It's Lydia.
And this is Mary.
And today it is story time with Mary and Lydia today on the podcast, everybody. And I am going to start with a story that is a follow-up to a story that I told a few episodes ago. So season 2, episode 3, Finding the Magic Again. If you haven't listened to that episode, then stop listening now. Well, stop listening as soon as I tell you what to do after you stop listening. Go and choose. They can't hear me because they stopped listening. So I don't even know what I'm going to say next. Yeah, it's a problem. Season 2, episode 3, Finding the Magic Again. Okay. So here, this is my follow-up story. So I was telling y'all about the Santa paper, right? And here's what happened with the Santa paper, everybody. So remember, we have to have Santa paper because that Santa paper means that it's from Santa, and the paper from their dad and I, it's from on a different paper, because if I use the Santa paper or use the same paper, then they would know that there's no Santa. So I'm always doing that, right? And we talked about that in Finding the Magic Again.
And how smart your children are to figure that out.
That's right. Yes, exactly. But they are. I mean, they would know. I would know.
They're very smart.
When I was a kid, I totally would have known. So anyway.
Would have known?
Oh, yes.
I don't know. Did we talk about whether or not you wrap the presents or not?
Yes. See, because that was your point. Your point was, why are you wrapping the presents? Like, just not wrap them?
More work.
Or have them all be presents from Santa. And what that comes down to is that I want a little bit of credit. I do a lot of freaking work on Christmas, and I want credit. Isn't that terrible? But it's true.
Well,
okay.
I feel the same way. So so tell us the story.
Okay, so here's the story.
Give us the update.
Here's the update. I know you guys are waiting with bated breath on this. So I found paper this year, y'all, that says From Santa. And I had never seen that paper before. So I got the From Santa paper, and I thought, this is going to save so many of my problems, because I'm always getting confused about which paper was the Santa paper and which paper was our paper. And so this time it was like, no brainer, that's the Santa paper. So I, fast forward, it's Christmas Eve. I've wrapped all of the presents, and, my son walks into the kitchen where I'm doing the dishes, and he said, "Mom, what is this?" And he hands me a rectangle scrap. Oh, yes, everybody, of the Santa paper. And he said, "It says From Santa." And I said, "I don't know."
That's so weird.
And I'm in this moment, I'm flashing back to our conversation about lying to your children and all this. And so here he is standing in front of me, and he goes, "Where could it have come from?" And I said, "I think Grandma was here earlier. Wasn't she sitting in that seat?"
Oh my God.
It was like, and he kind of just looked at me and looked at it. And so he goes away.
Poor Grandma.
I know. I never told her. Anyway, so this is what happened. So my husband comes in, and I said, "Honey, I really think this could be life inviting us to let him figure it out." Obviously I was so super stealth with that thing. I have been super stealth with it all 10 years of his life. Well, not 10, because he didn't know it 1 and 2, but 7 years of the Santa paper.
I'm sure you were stealth when he was.
I know, I probably was. And so so I've said, maybe it's about life inviting us. And he's like, "Absolutely not. No, we are not letting him figure it out." And I said, "Okay, wait. Before you make your call, I want you to go and listen to the podcast episode, because Mary and I talked about this." Okay. And
so did he listen?
So, and as an aside, that was the beginning of my husband being our number one fan and listening to every single episode and asking me when they come out. And, saying,
that was the first episode he listened to. Okay.
Yeah. That's when it happened. That's when the love affair with True and Unpolished began, everybody. And so he goes back and he listens, right? And he would come throughout the day. I would say, have you listened yet? And he's like, no, but I'm telling you, no, we're not that isn't what we're doing here. We're not letting him figure it out. And I said, I just want you to listen to it first. And so he goes back and he listens to the episode. And now it's 6:00 on Christmas Eve, everybody. And he comes up to me and he says, I listened and I think you're right. I think it's life inviting us to let him figure it out. And I looked at him and I said, okay. And he turns around and he walks 4 steps away. And I go, absolutely not. I'm not ready. Never mind. Go to Walgreens. I need to go to Walgreens right now and get paper. And he starts dying laughing, like laughing so loudly it's shaking the walls of our house, because all day long I had been saying, oh, we need to do this. And as soon as he said yes, I could not do it. And what I realized is it's not that he's not ready, it's that I'm not ready. Like, I'm not ready. When faced with that prospect, oh yeah. And everybody, Walgreens, on COVID Christmas, on Christmas Eve, has no Christmas wrapping paper. So we wrapped the gifts, rewrapped everybody, because they were already wrapped all night on Christmas Eve. I remember I talked to you a little bit on Christmas Eve. We were in the process of wrapping, and we wrapped with birthday paper. So I think Santa's very confused. But I will say,
it sounds like with the tactics you're taking, they're going to figure it out anyway.
It's like, I don't know. It's Santa's birthday and you're so, I know. I didn't say anything. And they didn't either, because they were too darn excited on Christmas to even think about the paper. And right, they don't care.
And did they figure it out?
No, they did not. No. And I listened to a podcast episode, and then Mary, you need to tell a story, but I'm going to tell you this. I listened to a podcast episode, and it was This American Life. And everybody, that's an amazing podcast. And if you have never listened to it, then you're welcome, because you have like years that you get to listen to. I've listened to like every episode, but they were talking to this man who he and his wife had done these elaborate like schemes where he would like pay people to dress up but it's Kris Kringle, and they made up this elaborate story. Like, there are many Kris Kringles, many Santas that work, and many Rudolphs, and like bring a bone. One of them had the bone, and they're like, this is the original, Rudolph bone. And I use it to call the reindeer. And, and it was kind of like a working man. Anyway, but he goes into this long, long thing. And one of the children, like up to 13 years old, the principal calls them and says, you have to talk to your son.
Principal at my school?
Yes, because he's in junior high in New Jersey or New York City, telling kids that they're crazy. Yes, there is a Santa. He's met him, and there's Kris Kringle, and there's many of them, and da-da-da-da-da. And so this kid, and he was causing a fight, like a physical fist fight. And so the principal's like, y'all have to talk to him. So he eventually finds out, that year when he was like 13 or 14, and they interviewed him, and he said he still has a hard time. He doesn't ever fully trust anybody. Like, it broke his trust so much in his parents. So I can say that all I do is take the cookies away and leave crumbs. That's the law. That's the most elaborate the lie gets.
Right. I think
that's for the Santa paper thing.
I think that's obviously an extreme example, but it's also where I was going when I talked about being truthful about it. And so what I wanted to tell you about is the magic, like finding magic. I went out of town for the weekend, and it was literally in the middle of nowhere. And it was a beautiful place, but literally in the middle of nowhere. And there were lots of magical moments. And I think one of them, and it was my intention when I decided, to go out of town, was to disconnect and to not have sort of the routine of life
Yeah.
staring me in the face. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, because we're not getting out and we're not socializing. But for me, it was kind of disconnecting from social media being one thing,
Right.
in particular, but just really disconnecting from my own thoughts.
Yeah.
And having a shift. And anyway, so what happened? We went on a hike, and we went to this little town in Tennessee. It's called Rugby, and it was intended to be a utopia, but they quickly realized it was this man from Britain came over and started this utopian town, but they quickly realized that there wasn't much to do as far as living off the land, because the ground wasn't fertile, and so it didn't really take the whole.
So wait, so what you mean is that it was going to be an intentional community, like a commune, and everybody was going to work together and live together, and that
No,
whole.
I don't know about it being a commune. I think it was just intended to be, well, I guess a commune in, they had this, it was a small town. They had like one of the first libraries ever, and they still have the library. They're like missing, out of, I think, 7,000 books, they're missing like 6 books.
What is that?
They said 6 volumes, but I wasn't sure if that were literally books, or like a number of books from 6 different sets, or what. But anyway, everything was closed because it was, when we went, it was the day after New Year. So anyway, but so we had it wasn't anything super exciting. I mean, literally we drove 5 hours to go nowhere.
I love it. Sometimes you have to drive 5 hours to go nowhere.
Yeah.
That's a bumper sticker.
I guess so. So anyway, so we're gone all day, we were exploring this town, and then there's a national park nearby. So we go and on a couple of trails, and anyway, we had heard or seen in the reviews of the place that we're staying. There's a sweet little cabin in Robbins, Tennessee, and the owner lived on the property, but kind of a far distance away. But we had seen in the reviews this dog, like the other guests who had stayed talked about this dog, and the dog's so great and so friendly. So we get back, and this is the 3rd day that we're there. We'd been out all day, hadn't seen the dog, but we pull up, and this little tiny dog with little tiny legs is running as fast as it can across this huge field. That thing it looked like it was going, it was like slow motion. I mean, it was going absolutely as fast as it could.
I wish y'all could see Mary, because when she said the little tiny legs, she opened up her finger, her thumb, and her forefinger about 1/4 of an inch. And so I'm picturing a dog with 1/4 of an inch legs.
Well, they're a little bigger than that, I suppose.
But probably. Okay, so the dog is running very fast.
Maybe like this big.
And is this the dog?
This is the dog from the reviews, and it is you can see it smiling, and it's going so fast yet so slow at the same time. And that dog being joyful, and imagining that dog greeting every guest.
Yeah.
And we had heard the dog's name is Bones, and it's
that's one of my favorite parts.
Bones. We had heard Bones running around the cabin barking. And that happened again the next morning, that she ran around the cabin barking to say hello, like get up and come, like let's hang out or whatever.
Let's hang out.
She eventually got to us, and then she's like squealing with delight and flops over on her back and is just like rolling around, running under the car to get to the other side so she can get more love on the passenger side.
Yeah.
And so it was just the sweet, joyful experience.
Yeah.
And I think, anyway, I just wanted to share that because that is the kind of magic that I was talking about before. And the word that you've used is enchantment.
Yes. Yeah. And what I'm picturing with the dog is, because I wasn't there and I'm watching you, so I can see that you are enchanted by the dog, and I'm imagining this dog. And I think that, it's about that, what we can do to get that magic back. And, and so my question is, if you had been not 5 hours away in the middle of nowhere, same dog, same actions, it's your driveway, would you still like, was Bones's energy so joyful that you would have felt it there too? Or was part of it in the observation because of where you were in your mind with being full of magic in the middle of the woods?
Well, Lydia, that is a great question. And I think it depends on the day and the moment and what been doing.
Yes.
That day was about being kind of open and not having plans and just
or commitments. And see, oh my gosh, this reminds me of the movie Soul. Have you seen it yet?
No, I'm waiting. I want to see it, but I'm waiting for my daughter to get home. So
we watched it with the kids and on Saturday, and it's so this, and there is a part of it, that talks about, I'm not going to give anything away, but it's essentially about finding your spark and the recognition. There's this one part where one of the characters is experiencing sheer enchantment and joy out of everything, like the grate that blows up air. They're walking down New York City and the grate that blows up air, they just lay down on it like they're flying, it's like, whee, and it's the recognition that we're all walking over the grate that's blowing up, and most of us are not enchanted by it. And so enchantment is a mindset, and there are and sometimes you have to drive 5 hours to get to the middle of nowhere to uncover it again. Sometimes that's necessary. And so I think the message is figuring out, ways that we can be intentional about inviting in our spark, our way of being that allows us to see everything as enchanted and full of magic. And so, going away, unplugging, watching movies like Soul with your children, it's you and we're worth it. Our life is worth it. We deserve magic and enchantment. And if you need to lie to your children about the existence of a Santa Claus that lives in the North Pole to be enchanted, then we just have to allow you to do that, because I think in parting, we should all say that we get completely why I did it, right?
Well, I think that we can have different opinions. But what I was thinking about when you were talking is, and this is something I was focused on earlier, and when I was leading a class today, is non-judgment. And so, I found myself making a lot of judgments, like, why did I pick this place? Like, look, maybe what is happening in the neighborhoods as we're passing through, and what this,
like on your way there.
Yeah,
you were looking around going, this does not look like it's going to be a fun trip, like leading up to it. Okay.
So the judgments, and so what happened whenever you were like, no, I can't do it, is what preceded that was a judgment.
Yeah.
And that triggered an emotion, and that's how it works. And so I think whatever it takes to let go of judgment is really the key that we're looking for to find the enchantment. And I think, being willing to be vulnerable and non-judgmental is how we get to that. And so it took me all day and several days to get to that place where I was just like blown away by this dog.
Right. Yeah.
But I find those moments all the time. If I see a hawk flying, that to me is like there's an excitement there, just seeing it in the sky.
Well, I can say that is one of the things that I really admire about you. You are an enchanted woman. You've always been enchanted and enchanting. Like, you're just so Mary. And Mary's so Mary. Okay, that's really deep. We're not going to understand what any of this means. But I think that, yes. So we will leave you with the recognition that enchantment is a way of seeing and a way of being, and is not dependent on one's circumstances, outer circumstances necessarily. And when it becomes dependent on that, is probably time to drive 5 hours to get to the middle of nowhere.
Right. And practice vulnerability and non-judgment.
I know. I was trying to skip over that.
Feel a little what?
I was trying to skip over that, the vulnerability part. I'm teasing.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Let's not do that. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. And I'll just say that we are on Pandora now, which is very exciting. Thank you, brilliant, amazing producer Nicole, for making that happen. And thank all of you for listening. And we are on Google Podcasts and on Spotify and all the places where you can get your podcasts. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. And we'll see what happens next.